Well, all of council will have heard me questioning the Housing Vancouver goals of 72,000 new homes over the next decade. That would mean 7,200 new dwelling units every year from 2018 to 2028. And when I've asked about how those targets were arrived at, I've been told that primarily they came from our values. And I have been asking, and this is really an ask, for the data on, because I'm very much a data person and about evidence-based decision making. And so I looked at the census data, and it doesn't align. There may be other data there as well, but I think that especially as we're moving forward, as we do know that the primary driver of our housing industry has been in Canada, not just Vancouver, driven by immigration, and all the banks now are suggesting that there's going to be a slowdown in immigration that will similarly mean a slowdown in the housing industry. So I'm just super concerned that we do our diligence, that we go back to first principles and look at the underlying assumptions on which our plans are based. So expect that you're going to see a revised motion from me that's going to address some of the concerns that have been expressed, just to be clear that that's coming. But ultimately, we need the data, then we do the analysis, then we make whatever policy changes arise from that. But not to go back, especially under the situation that we're in with the COVID pandemic, and not revisit our underlying assumptions, I think would be wrong. And we have the opportunity to do it now, has been suggested under the Vancouver plan. So recalibrating, that's what it's all about.
Thanks. And you've got Councillor Carr for a question for a minute. So please go ahead, Councillor Carr. It's all right. You're on mute, I think, Councillor Carr.
Sorry about that. My
That's
first question has to do, Councillor Hardwick, with your assumption that there will be a slowdown in immigration. Don't forget that this housing plan is over 10 years and that everywhere around the world, people are estimating that there will be a net and very large increase in immigration due to the climate crisis, and which will make large parts of the world uninhabitable.
This Housing Vancouver strategy is very specifically for this decade. And while it's reasonable to assume that there will be ongoing population, to suggest that an order of magnitude of 100,000 more people would be immigrating here within that time period, I think is unlikely. But notwithstanding, I cannot see that an re-examination of underlying assumptions could do anything but inform our decision-making down the line. I want to be clear that what I'm not suggesting here is decision-making or policy changes. I'm suggesting that we revisit the underlying assumptions and the data that we have.
Thanks. Councillor Bly, up to a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You may have very well just answered my question, Councillor Hardwick, and that is, how would you like Council to consider this motion in terms of how the, if it passes and the staff do come back with this revised data, how would you see that being used in terms of planning and projections and housing targets going forward?
Well, step by step, I have been talking to the Director of Planning about this. This is something that I've been interested in for a very long time and watching closely, as it has been an emergent process. But the steps normally are: look at the assumptions, look at the underlying data on which our judgments are based, go through and a fresh analysis, a fresh set of eyes, fresh information, and then revisit any kind of policy changes that would stem from that after that exercise has been complete.
Thank you. Councillor Fry.
Yeah, thanks. Your motion suggests that the Housing Vancouver strategy targets should align with projected population growth based on census data. Is your intention then to preclude other data, for instance, CMHC, economic and employment growth, regional growth strategy, those other data points?
Not in a million years.
It's just an oversight in the motion. Okay.
It was, and you
Okay,
should
okay,
have
okay.
received, Councillor Fry, another email from me on the subject.
Sorry, I haven't checked my email, but Leslie, you mentioned that there's evidence that immigration is going to slow in upcoming years. What? There's no citation for that evidence. Where's that evidence coming from?
If you're sitting at your computer, look at the TD Economist and the most recent housing industry projections and commentary, I think dated April 28th. I'll share the link with you. This is something, again, that is being widely discussed by the banks in this sector. And I think, again, whether it's true or not, there's a certain amount of crystal ball gazing in all of this. We ought to be asking the questions and getting the best possible data. And I'm never going to say no to another data set.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Dominato. Sorry, Councillor Dominato, do you have?
Can you hear me now?
I can. I'll just reset your timer. Please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Yes, just to Councillor Hardwick, I'm just wondering, in the context of your request for data, do you see an opportunity here when you talk about recalibrating, is looking at that housing continuum? Because one of the challenges I think we found was that we weren't providing the right mix of housing, the missing middles come up. It was one of the motivators for me to run, I think probably others. Is that something you would see us looking at?
100%. You know, we were talking earlier on today about the empty homes tax and the impact that that has had on us. Well, the empty homes are not just single family dwellings in Dunbar. They're stacked all the way downtown in various ways, as you know. And the fact is there, if you look actually at the CMHC numbers from 2016, you'll see that there were 9,759 building starts in a single year. So, but a large amount of this has gone into the luxury condo market because that's where the money has been. That's changed, of course, with the speculation tax and the empty homes tax. But the bottom line is we need to make sure that we get the right housing for the people moving forward. And that's what I'm focused on.
Thank you.
Councillor Boyle, up to a minute.
Thanks. I have two quick questions. The first is I'm curious about the June report back date. That seems pretty quick, and I'm wondering if you have that.
So, Councillor Boyle, I also CC'd you on some work that I have been doing with the Director of Planning, and so we have agreed to push that out till Q4 of this year to be able to envelope it into existing reports that are coming forward.
Okay, thanks. And then I've heard mention of a few emails and revisions. I'm wondering if there's a clear plan of the revisions you plan to bring forward that we'll see before tomorrow.
You have it.
Think about it.
You do have them. I sent it through to you and to Councillor Swanson in a group with the Seniors Advisory Council. So if you look for that, you'll see the state, and it includes the exchange between me and the Director in Planning.
Okay, maybe you can just recirculate it so all of Council has the same thing, but I'll let
I absolutely will. I absolutely will.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I know that this has generated a lot of discussion, Councillor Hardwick, which I know is always a good thing. And I'm looking at clause 5 in the current motion, and you talk about the average household size of 2.2 and that equating to 158,000 base new people or new homes required based on 72,000 units. But would you agree that there needs to be more sort of qualitative analysis as well as metrics in terms of what those household compositions are going to look like? They could be smaller, could have single people, we could have less than 2.2.
Well, 2.2 is the median average. That's what median average means, is you've got people on the one hand that are single people, the other ones are families. So in Vancouver specifically, the median average is 2.2, and so I use these are broad numbers, but when applied in contrast with what we've seen historically, they don't line up. And so again, the purpose here is to do a more fulsome analysis and go back and look at our underlying assumptions on which our plans have been made.
Okay, that's my minute. Otherwise, I'd ask another one. Thank you.
I have a question, actually, if I could turn it over to Councillor Wiebe for this one.
Go ahead, Mayor Stewart.
Thanks very much. So Councillor Hardwick, we found that the data kind of weren't pointing in the direction you're expecting it to. Would you be open to revising the numbers upward?
up from the 72,000 that's in place.
Yeah.
I would be shocked, but evidence-based decision-making is the name of the game, and we'll see what the evidence provides.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Point of privilege, if I could ask a question and be put on the queue, Mayor Stewart?
Sure, go ahead, Councillor Dejanova.
Thanks so much. Councillor Hardwick, I haven't heard much about affordability in this. We talked about immigration, you know, in these questions. I was hoping
Sorry,
that you'd be able to.
I thought it was 2 minutes too.
I'm going to, oh, it's the 7 o'clock yelling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that was not me.
Okay.
I can attest to that. Councillor Dejanova.
I'll restart your timer. Go ahead, Councillor Dejanova.
No, it's okay. I'll be very quick. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just, Councillor Hardwick, how is affordability measured in this motion when we look at affordability? Where, you know, there's housing, but then there's affordable housing. So I'm not seeing that measured here. And have you considered the data and information that says that the more housing there is of the right supply, the more affordable that will be?
Well, you know, I'm asking for information here, and we need to do some complex analysis once we have that data in place. There's a lot of descriptions bandied about what is really affordable, and we can also suggest that the pattern, especially up at the top of the market in 2016, increased the cost overall of production of labor and materials, not to mention the underlying land on which it's based. So there are complexities in terms of the land use economics that would be, you know, informed by better data instead of just simple binary responses.
Okay,